In 2 generations, you have heard me talk about this so many times, but I'm going to say it again just to reinforce. In 2 generations, we have traded tradition for convenience. And with convenience, there's always a trade off. So, my question for you today is, what was the trade off when we decided to put away those skills in the kitchen and trade it for store-bought convenience food? I want to welcome you back to the Sovereign Kitchen Society. I'm Molly Bravo, chef, home canner, cookbook author, and of course, a woman on a mission to gather all of the kitchen wisdom of our elders while they're still here so that I can pass it on to the next generation, to our kids, and put it into their hands. Every single week on this show, we take on old skills, one lost tradition, and we dig all the way down into how things used to work, why it mattered, and exactly how it fits into our lifestyles right now. This show is, of course, brought to you by my catering company, Wilder Space. We're a farm-to-table catering company based in the Santa Cruz Mountains. If you have a wedding, a retreat, a gathering, and something that feels like it deserves real food made by scratch and made by real hands, please come visit us at wilderspace.com. And before we step even further, I just want to ask you right now, if you would be so kind, please leave us a review, because a review is how people who need this information end up finding us. It's going to take you about 2 minutes. It boosts the algorithm and it feeds our content to people that actually need it. So, how did the old kitchen end up getting replaced? I do know that convenience has solved real problems. I'm not naive to that. My grandmother's kitchen was beautiful, but it was also a true labor of love, and it was a place that people worked. They spent many, many hours in the kitchen every single day, and most of the effort fell upon the women during that time. Refrigeration, grocery stores, prepared food, all of the things that brought back time. And for a lot of families, that meant their kids could go to school, parents could go to work, they could rest a little bit. So I'm not here to romanticize a wooden stove in the heat of July. But what I do want you to understand is that convenience didn't just happen to us. It was fed to us for a very specific reason. It was built, it was marketed, and after World War II, when the war ended, nitrogen ended up becoming a very cheap synthetic fertilizer. We've talked about that before on the podcast a couple episodes ago. We had wartime food science, we had rations, we had dehydrated food, we had things that were to survive on a ship going across the ocean. And all of that technology came back to us, the consumer, the customer. That customer was the American housewife, believe it or not. And by 1954, what was super popular? It was the TV dinner. It was built for a generation that the food companies had specifically targeted. They convinced us that the work of the kitchen was absolute drudgery and that buying our way out of it was actual progress. So people like my grandmother, Miss Minnie, who lived in West Virginia, were led to believe that convenience was a status thing, that doing things the old-fashioned way was embarrassing and backwoods. And so those traditions fell by the wayside. So in one narrow sense, of course, this marketing ploy worked. In my grandparents' day, families spent tons of their income on food. And today, we spend about 10%. So what happened? Food got super cheap. Look at where the money goes now. We didn't just change how we cook, we changed who gets paid when we eat. So now the money is one thing, of course, but the real cost of convenience is not measured in dollars, you guys. It's measured in skill. So skills have this very strange way of dying off. They don't die in the generation that stops using them. They end up dying in the generation that was never taught the skills. My grandparents canned all the time. They cured and they baked because they had to. My parents' generation was the first generation that did not have to do that. But they still watched how it was done. So they carried the memory of it into my generation. And of course, my generation is the first one that has not carried any sort of memory or knowing in how to live out these traditional skills. We paid the skill, we paid the connection, and then there are these very specific line items that I want to walk you through, because once you can name what was traded away, guess what? You can start bringing it back into your family's home life. So what are those 3 line items? Let's talk about it. This episode is going to be all about teaching you how to bring these things back into our kitchen. Let's talk about line item 1. We traded away the seasons. And I can prove it to you with something as simple as a strawberry. When you go and you buy a strawberry in January, I want you to pay attention to how that strawberry tastes, because it probably tastes like water. But we purchase them anyways, and we vote with our dollar. And what we're doing is we're telling people we want more strawberries grown in January, so that by the time spring rolls around and those strawberries are in peak season, there's nothing special about receiving them, because we've already been eating them all year round. Our kids need to know what it tastes like to eat produce that is grown in peak season, an apple that's grown in fall, or perhaps a nice warm cup of bone broth that's simmering away in the dead of winter that just warms us from the insides out. Our kids need to know what that's like. They need something to look forward to season by season. The deeper loss is what seasons used to do for us. Seasonal food was a calendar that you could follow through taste. So strawberries were meant for early summer and spring. They were celebrated because it meant that we were leaving the cold of winter. Everything now is available all the time. Nothing is special anymore, you guys. And we have lost the oldest sources of anticipation and celebrations that humans celebrated for years and years. The second thing, the second line item, we traded away the faces. What I mean by that is there was a time, and my family's elders lived through it, when food came from the people that we knew by name. We traded convenience, handed that relationship over to a system that was consolidated. And today, roughly 4 companies process the overwhelming majority of beef in this country. Like 4 huge companies across the entire world. That is so disturbing. When food has a face, you have accountability. You know the person that's growing your food. You can look them in the eye. You can shake their hand. You get to see them in church every Sunday. When food comes from a system, there is no accountability. All you're doing is relying on a label to tell you where your food comes from. You don't know if that label's telling you the truth. The third line item, and I think this one has cost us the most, is that we have traded away the table. Old meals used to take a lot of time to prepare. Preparation was shared. Recipes moved from one set of hands to the other, which is the only way that recipes actually survived back then. So in my family, the elders tell me that Sundays were the most important day of the week. It's when news traveled. It's when the family kind of sat down together and talked about what was going on during the week. It's when children learned to sit down among the grown-ups and listen to adult conversations. The meal was the reason that people would gather together. People came together as a community, as a family, as friends. And fast food has changed how we eat. Our tables have fractured. They've gotten socially smaller. If today has stirred something in you, if you're feeling like the pull to take one of these skills back, I want to give you a starting point. I have created the Essential Canning Cookbook. It teaches you the skills that have sat at the center of my grandmother's kitchen for 100 years. It's about preserving food in jars. It's about water bath canning, pressure canning, safe tested recipes, and of course, a clear path from your very first jar to the pantry that you are going to build with your own two hands. So there's nothing like the sound of a lid that is sealing in your own kitchen, you guys. The link is going to be in the show notes. It's on Amazon. It's anywhere you feel like looking for it on the internet. Please support me, support my work, support Wilder Space, and go put up some food. Your family is going to thank you. I promise you. Now, I want to tell you why this episode is so important, because most grocery stores in this country run on a supply chain. And we as Americans rely on that supply chain wholeheartedly. I cannot tell you how important it is to diversify, to not put all of your eggs in one basket. If you have the opportunity to tap into a farmer's market, to know the people that grow your food directly, to grow your own food if you're fortunate enough to have a small piece of land to do that, I highly recommend it, because heaven forbid anything happens in this world, but if the world falls apart, it's really important that you can feed your family. A pantry is filled with skills. It's filled with skills that you have practiced. It's filled with food that was grown by a farmer that you may know by name. And those are the most practical insurance that a family can hold. And it was standard practice back then. So we need to bring that back before it gets lost. The people who still hold these skills in their hands, people who are canning on the regular, are people that you need to know, because you can learn from them. They can teach you these old world skills. These people, many of them are in their 80s and in their 90s right now. And what I know is that it costs a lot to be on the wrong side of that window. I never got the opportunity to sit with my grandparents. I never got the opportunity to learn directly from them. These are all things that I am recovering through my own research and my own family, and connecting with my elders, who I believe are the most important people in our community. All right, so we always end with 3 simple things that you can start today to get involved in the real food movement. The first thing is that I want you to eat in season. I want you to look up what is actually coming out of the ground where you live right now. And I want you to start buying those things. I want you to build a single meal around one of those ingredients. And then I want you to pay attention to what it feels like to eat that. How does it taste? Does it taste better than what you normally prepare? And then the second thing that I want you to do is I want you to learn one name of one farmer in the town that you live in right now, so that you can become friends with that person. Get them in your phone. Know them by name. Shake their hand. Look them in the eye. Go to the farmer's market. Support them. You want to be friends with those people. Those are the people that are going to feed you if times ever get tough. You can learn a lot from your farmers, you guys, because if you ever decide that you want to start your own garden, those are the people that you want to ask questions to. They're here, they're healthy, they're working, they're doing it, and they can guide you in all the steps that it takes to start cultivating your own food. The third thing that I want you to do this week is that I want you to call a family member, reach out to an elder in your family if possible. I would love it if you did this today. I know that they would love it if you did it today. And I want you to ask them about a recipe. I want you to ask them what their favorite recipe was when they were growing up. Maybe they have it written down. Maybe they can share it with you. I want you to ask them how they learned that recipe. Who did they learn it from? And then I want you to write down what they tell you. That phone call, that one phone call, is an act of preservation. As real as anything that I have ever put up in a jar, I am telling you, this is the most important thing that you could do for yourself and for your family. We need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to the way that our great grandparents did things. And the only way we're going to gather that information is by asking questions. So, in closing, if you do just one of those three things this week, please come tell me about it. I am found at the Sovereign Kitchen Society on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Substack, wherever the heck you want to find me. Let's be friends. Let's connect. Let's share the old ways together. I want to learn from you just as much as I'm learning from my own family members right now. Because when we share, we're able to rebuild the lost art of cooking from scratch and of these old traditional food ways. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please go call your people, ask them what they remember. And for you, I want you to remember that food is and always will be our medium for connection. I'll see you next time.